Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the 2018 NFL Draft Class, specifically the top 5 offensive tackles based on analytics. And if you are new to the channel, or even older to the channel, the one thing I can say is I have done a lot of updates to some of my previous videos. There are some players in this list that I've done videos on in the past that have had their data updated. So guys like ONeill or Chukwuma Okorafor, those are guys that I have updated their data. There was kind of a mistake in some of the processing of the data that I was doing, which kind of caused their athleticism scores to be lower than they should be. And because of that, all that stuff is fixed. So this is the final rankings. So this is the final data scores for these particular prospects. I checked them, double checked them, proofread everything, and this is by far the final say on these guys in this particular draft class. And the way this ranking is going to do is we're going to look at them based on their athleticism traits. We're going to see what the potential is based on those traits. And if you're new to the channel and you're new to the work that I do, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So if you don't know what explosive lower body strength score is, speed score, or flexibility score, all that information will be in the description. If there's any players that you do not see on this list, in this top 5 list based on analytics, be sure to check out the 2018 NFL Draft Analytics Guide. Link is in the description on that guide, which is available on Amazon.com. You will find profiles on all of, or at least the majority of the offensive tackles that are in this draft class, on top of just profiles on every other position from guard, center, edge, defensive line, etc. So be sure to buy that guide to support this channel if you like the stuff that I do. And with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to the top 5 offensive tackles in the 2018 NFL Draft Class based on analytics. So starting with number 5 on this list, we have Chukwuma Okorafor, offensive tackle out of Western Michigan. Based on his testing, and this is the final testing, you know, after updating things and proofreading things and kind of correcting a couple mistakes here and there in the processing of this information, this is his final score. Had a 20.78 explosive lower body strength score, 47.48 speed score, and 72.43 flexibility score. Based on my data since the 1999 NFL Draft Class, Okorafor pretty much hits all the thresholds necessary for starter potential. Misses the mark of Pro Bowl potential because of his explosive lower body strength score. Misses the mark in terms of All Pro potential, especially when it comes to his explosion score as well. But bottom line, Okorafor kind of has starter potential based on his athleticism traits. The only problem with him is that when you look at the averages at the position, so you look at the average score for an All-Pro player, Pro Bowl player, and even a starter player, he's basically below what the average score is for a starter in terms of explosion and below what the average is for speed for a starter. So those are only the big question marks with Okorafor. Is just, you know, he's below average in terms of speed and below average in terms of explosion. But he, by far, is just one of those guys in this draft class. When you look at all the data collectively, has potential to be a starting offensive tackle, and that is why he's number 5 in this list. Then, of course, we get to the number 4 guy in this list, which is probably a name you haven't heard of before. But this is also based on his pro day data, and this is Gearhart DeBeer, offensive tackle out of Arizona. When you look at his athleticism testing, he had a 79.89 explosive lower body strength score, 60.65 speed score, and 78.06 flexibility score. Doesn't quite hit the minimum speed score for an all-pro potential offensive tackle, but does hit all the minimum thresholds for Pro Bowl potential and starter potential. And when you look at the averages at the position, he pretty much hits within range of starter to Pro Bowl potential based on his testing. The only area that's a little bit concerning is his speed score. You know, basically below what the average is for a starter with his speed. But his explosion score and his flexibility score is high enough that there is a lot of potential with him to become a long-term starting offensive tackle in this draft class. And in a tackle class like this, which has a lot of question marks, he sticks out in a major way, which is why he's number 4 on this list. Then, of course, we get to the number 3 player on this list, which is Connor Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas. When you look at his testing, he had an 89.35 explosive lower body strength score, 74.93 speeds score, and a 57.22 flexibility score. Pretty much hits all the thresholds that you're looking for in terms of Pro Bowl potential, in terms of, you know, minimum thresholds, minimum scores for Pro Bowl potential. Pretty much hits all those areas. When you look at the averages at the position, this is the only area where he runs into some issues, specifically with his flexibility testing. Pretty much is below what the average flexibility score is for a starting player, but definitely has the explosion and speed scores necessary to probably make up for that lack of flexibility. So we'll still see what happens with Connor Williams. I think there's a lot to really say about him. He's not really David Bakhtiari, because David Bakhtiari had kind of an opposite sort of testing. He was very fast and very flexible, but not very explosive. Williams is kind of the opposite. He's very explosive and very fast, but not necessarily very flexible. Bottom line is, I think Connor Williams is a very good shot to become a starting offensive tackle at the next level, to even Pro Bowl potential, like fringe Pro Bowl potential with him. But bottom line, he's number 3 in this list just because of that flexibility testing not exactly being where it needs to be. Then, of course, we get to number 2 in this list, which is Brian ONeill. I know I've done a video in the past on Brian ONeill, which kind of raised a lot of red flags with him, but after double-checking some things and fixing some things, and there were some issues in terms of the processing of his data, all that stuff is fixed now. And this is him right now. He's actually the number 2 best offensive tackle in this draft class after going through and fixing some of the issues in terms of the processing of his data. He still has some question marks, though, and this is basically how his data showed up. He had a 40.08 explosive lower body strength score, 96.52 speed score, and a 93.11 flexibility score. Based on my data as well, he pretty much hits within the Pro Bowl scores in terms of bottom-end Pro Bowl potential, in terms of explosion, speed, and flexibility. Doesn't quite hit the minimum threshold for All-Pro potential in terms of his explosive lower body strength score, but definitely hits within range of Pro Bowl potential. And the only real question mark with him is when you look at the averages at the position, he's below what the average is for a starter, Pro Bowl player, and All-Pro player when it comes to his explosive lower body strength score. So that is the only major question mark with Brian ONeill, is his explosive lower body strength score, which, as I mentioned in a previous video, is something that kind of gets overlooked when it comes to the tackle position. You know, it's something that definitely does have some weaknesses if you don't set up your scheme the right way. But the bottom line is because Brian ONeill put up such a good speed score, such a good flexibility score, and his explosion score is not as bad as it was initially received due to some issues with data processing, he still comes out as the number 2 best offensive tackle in this draft class based on his overall athleticism traits. And then we get to the number 1 offensive tackle in this draft class based on analytics, and that is, of course, Colton Miller, offensive tackle out of UCLA. When you look at his explosion score, he had an 87.33 score, an 85.58 speed score, and a 93.48 flexibility score. Pretty much hits all the minimum thresholds for All-Pro potential except for speed, but he's only about 0.43-ish away from that, so that's kind of why I'm giving him a pass. He's within the margin of error of kind of hitting the All-Pro speed score. And then when you look at the averages at the position, he pretty much is more so within the averages of a Pro Bowl player than a All-Pro player, but definitely a very solid overall athleticism profile for a guy like him. There are a lot of question marks with Colton Miller based on film. You know, he's a guy that is a little bit raw, but I think overall, when you look at a guy like him, you just have to go, hey, this is a guy that is one of the youngest offensive tackles in this draft class. Very good overall athleticism profile. And though I don't think he's going to become an All-Pro or Pro Bowl player, just my own personal opinions based on film, I do think there's a very good shot that he has a potential to be a long-term starting offensive tackle, which is something that you kind of want. You know, there's not very many of those guys hanging out. So again, that's kind of why Colton Miller is the top offensive tackle in this draft class based on analytics. And some of you guys might be going, where's Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame? He unfortunately did not do the 40 or the short shoulder 3 cone at the Pro Day or the Combine, and because of that, there's just not enough data to project him thus far. So if he had done the 40 and had done the flexibility testing, agility testing, he would have actually been on this list potentially, but because he didn't do that, there's just not enough data to really put him on this list, because this is a ranking based purely on data, not based on film. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so that you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace!